There are vegans who say they're biohackers. Great. Show me the data. If you do it and you measure before and after, did you get results? If not, it does not work for you.
Today, we welcome a true pioneer in biohacking, Dave Asprey. What is the best way to meditate?
Meditation is a huge waste of time. I can have the same brainwaves as a daily meditator for decades in 5 days. More than 1,000 people come through and spend 5 days with me with electrodes glued to their heads, showing them what's going on in there and then studying this. So what works better than just meditating? If I wear these for 15 minutes, according to a study in a medical journal now, my brain will drop out of beta and it'll enter into a meditative state.
You've got a danger coffee revolution going on, and I really want the definitive download of how that is a super innovation, superfood, and the responsible way to use it and the best application of it.
The most powerful thing you could do to make your life better, it would be
Welcome to the Younger Than Yesterday podcast, and today we welcome a true pioneer in biohacking, Dave Asprey. As a multiple New York Times bestselling author, he has also founded the Danger Coffee Revolution and fully optimizes human performance, lifespan, and quality of life. A Silicon Valley innovator turned health disruptor, he hacked his own biology to lose 100 pounds, boost brain function, and dial his entire body in at the age of 52. Dave is featured in major media and host of a hit podcast, The Human Upgrade. He's not just talking about peak performance, he's actually living it. So please welcome the father of biohacking himself, Dave Asprey.
Oh, thanks, Ian. But I got to say, I'm feeling triggered right now because you aged me. So there's this thing that people will do, particularly in like California or Washington State or somewhere, where like, how dare you assumed my gender without asking. So if you're allowed to identify with whatever gender you choose, I identify with my lab test values, which makes me not 52.
Right. What is your biological age right now?
Well, I'm just messing with you. It depends which test you want to believe. And this is one of the difficulties with longevity. And I've been in this space for 25 years now. And we have all these beautiful methylation aging clocks. It turns out your grip strength is a pretty good predictor of your age. In fact, your DNA methylation will predict your grip strength, how fast you walk, the amount of fat in your liver. If we're going to use that one, I'm about 18. The flexibility of your liver, as in how fibrotic is it, I'm around 10. Like I have no liver fibrosis whatsoever, like the best score they've ever seen on the test. And then you look at some other ones, I might be 46. So I'm guessing about a dozen reliable ways of looking at your age. And all of them are below 52. And it's easy it feels good to kind of cherry pick the best one. So I'll say I'm somewhere around a dozen years younger than my age, no matter how you slice it. And on some of them, much less. And some of them, well, none of them am I older than my age. So you kind of look at the sum total. It's like in business school, they taught me you want to look at a financial statement. You can look at it via any of these 50 different ways and say whatever you want about the business. Well, you can do the same with your aging. The reality, though, is you want to know that you have the energy, you have the mental performance, you have the speed, you have all of the different metrics are working and that there aren't major problems. So I would say I'm younger than 52, but I was just giving you a hard time because why not?
Yeah, I turned 67 in June. I feel like I'm better than I've ever been in my life, even at 21. But you're right about it's, you can't fake the human body. You can really measure it. And you've been the leader in this space ever since I met you in 2012, where you came on very strong and really pioneered all of these things, which I like to call master keys that removes a problem that causes the body to age. And one of the things that you've tapped into in the meditation side, which I think is you've tapped into a master key, which I really need to get your download on, is what is the best way to meditate, to do that, the heavily meditated form to get the body and the mind and everything, synchronized.
I'm glad you asked that way. And I've written 9 books now and 4 New York Times bestsellers, more than 1 million copies, and maybe right around a million. I don't know. It's hard to count in all the different countries. But the idea is that you can learn how to eat to get your energy back. You can learn how to improve cognitive function. You can learn how to live way longer than you're supposed to. Books on each of these things. But then who wants to live a long time if you don't actually have happiness? If you're not peaceful, like if you don't have that internal state, because you could live a long time and it could just be hellish with, struggling the entire time and suffering. So along the same way I dealt with the 100 pounds of extra body fat, all the chronic disease stuff I got over, even reversing my age. I've also been studying with shamans and gurus around the world. I've been to South America, remote parts of China, and been studying esoteric practice. And I started a neuroscience facility more than 10 years ago now, about 10 years ago, called 40 Years of Zen. And so what I'm sharing now in this answer is a result of 20 years of studying from multiple lineages and having more than 1,000 people come through and spend 5 days with me with electrodes glued to their heads, showing them what's going on in there, and then studying this. And the reality is that meditation is a huge waste of time. Now, I'm sorry to say that. Exercise is also a huge waste of time. However, they are both necessary. It's just, how are you going to do it? And I'm sure I've already triggered somebody listening. And if that triggered you, dude, I'm in charge, not you. And that means you need to learn how to meditate, and maybe you could do it in less time. Because if anything on earth can push your buttons and dysregulate you, you're not in charge of you. Doesn't that make sense? So what works better than just meditating? Because meditation does work, but do you have 2 hours a day to sit and meditate? I don't. So at the very extreme end, you can replace 20 to 40 years of daily meditation with intense neurofeedback. And not a lot of people are going to come up to Seattle and do that at my company. So if that's an example, I can have the same brainwaves as a daily meditator for decades in 5 days. Which one was better? Well, you probably learned a lot over those 40 years, but maybe you could do both if you wanted to. So the first thing you can add on top of a meditation practice is breathwork. And I've actually hosted a breathwork conference with the guy who invented holotropic breathwork when he was 94 years old, named Stan Grof. And we had a couple hundred people come in. This was a replacement for LSD. So learning the different breaths as you meditate will give you more meditation per minute. And this is not to say that your type of meditation is wrong or that there's any issue like that. It's simply to say that if you only have 10 minutes to meditate, you better make it count. And if you had 2 hours to meditate, did you want to spend that time doing that? And was there anything else higher value for you or others you could have done in that time? If so, get the meditation done. Reach the state, re-regulate your nervous system, teach yourself what you need, and then do something else valuable. And that's why I say meditation is a waste of time. Because if you're doing a lazy meditation, I want to sit here for a couple hours and I'll get into it, or sit there for 5 minutes and get into it, right? So yes, hurry, meditate faster. It's a thing and it's important. And the reason for that is that we need conscious people in the world right now, and we don't have 10 years to make them. We need them right now. So heavily meditated is a list of all of the technologies and techniques that can help you learn how to meditate in less time. The first one is breath work, and there's several different kinds I cover in the book. Things as simple as a box breath, or let's say you want to calm down and drop in. So one way is I'm going to just lay here and I'm going to allow the thoughts to come into my head, and I'm just going to watch them and become aware of them. And they're going to slowly roll through. This is what they taught me in the monasteries. Dude, I was sitting there for 8 hours a day. I'm like, that's a slow way to do it. Another thing you could do that'd be faster is you can close your eyes. You can breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out for 8 seconds. Because if you're breathing out twice as long on the out breath, it'll reset your nervous system more quickly so you can drop in and you get your meditation to work better. And this is a valuable, useful thing to know. And I would suggest doing that. You can also do things like hook various devices up to your body or your head that show you what your body's doing. You could do heart rate variability training, not the stuff you see in the morning on your ring, but things where you actively learn how to change the shape of the beats of your heart so that they're more relaxed. You can use sounds or light that blink at certain rates in order to change the state of your brain. You could maybe do some pharmaceuticals or natural substances like psychedelics. There's a chapter on that. But maybe the most powerful thing you could do to make your life better that isn't meditation, but does things kind of like meditation, it would be something called BICEP. This is a new concept in biohacking that's a part of heavily meditated. And BICEP is not the bicep, the muscle. It's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. And that sounds really appetizing, doesn't it? Well, bear with me for a second. Several centuries ago, monks it was called self-flagellate. They would whip themselves, right? And I heard about this as a teenager. I'm like, that's horrible. They thought they were such sinners, they had to whip themselves. That's not what they were doing at all. It's not like they were harming themselves. They were just doing something that hurt. And then yogis. Why would they ever lay on a bed of nails? Like, are they crazy? What's wrong with them? Right? Well, maybe there's method to their madness. Or Texans, why do they eat chili peppers? Like ones that make you cry. Or if you're a biohacker, why would you sit in ice cold water that actually hurts. Well, the neuroscience is clear. There are benefits for a cold plunge for biohackers. I've been teaching this for 15 years. There are metabolic benefits. There's endorphins. But the real improvement is doing something that hurts, particularly cold water, raises the levels of dopamine sensitivity by about 2.5 times. So what that means is your body requires less dopamine to feel motivated, happy, and satisfied. And that means that when you do decide you're going to meditate and decide that when you're going to sit down and apply yourself to work, it feels easier. Because what dopamine does is it rewards you for working towards a goal. It will not reward you if you get the goal. It's just the motivation to do stuff that matters. So ultimately, why are you meditating? Well, for whatever reason. But since meditation requires work, if you do something around BICEP, just not to harm yourself, just to experience pain that's under your control for a brief period, well, your meditation will be easier. And so will your job.
So it's getting more into the definitive least amount of time, energy, effort, and resources to get the maximum return in your investment, which is what you've been simplifying over the years.
I mean, ultimately,
and really cracking the code.
Like you could meditate for 2 hours or you can meditate for 15 minutes and have an hour and a half of really good sex. Oh, wait. There's a whole chapter in Heavily Meditated about the fact that one of the ways to reach these altered states where we can do deep inner healing and we can develop our superpowers, 20% of people report meeting God during orgasm at least once in their life. And you're not going to know that. They're laying there, twitching and doing what they do, but they're having a profound spiritual healing mystical experience. So why is Tantra and other conscious practices around our intimate relationships, why is that not included in most meditation teachings? When was the last time a yoga teacher said, go home and get some? Well, it's not about unconscious sex. It's not about porn. It's about learning the techniques to use intimacy as a nourishing altered state that's as profound and important as heavy-duty breath work or a psychedelic journey. And you can do that too. These are all valid ways to enter altered states. And altered states are healing states. They're high-performance states. They're flow states. That's what meditation's for. Let's find all the switches in the human body to turn those on.
Right. So all the systems that are running 24 hours a day are going to benefit each other if you're tapping into the right equilibrium in each of those states, is what I'm getting.
Yep.
So,
exactly right.
Profound. Now, just a quick question. If you were to go back to the beginning of your journey, and I know this is not the case, but if you were restricted on something where you were only allowed to choose one or two things, what would be those two top things that you would choose that you found made the most difference to all the different systems in your body?
You're talking in the realm of meditation and altered states?
Yeah, the realm of your whole being coming into alignment with what's real.
The most important thing is, it's pretty boring. It would be learn how to eat and learn how to sleep. Those are so simple. But the reason for this is that, and I have really good data on this too, if you don't have functioning mitochondria because you are eating kryptonite, things that are not compatible with your system, what's going to happen? Well, you are going to try to meditate and you're going to have less electrical output. And I know that my people, when they come to 40 years of Zen, if I feed them properly, they can do 2.5 times more deep meditation work before they just hit the wall and they're done. And if I just have them come in on a regular diet, they don't have resilience. They can't hold the state. This is a big deal. So we need to really focus, learn how to not eat things that make you weak. And since most of the time, many things make you weak, you never know. Imagine you're Superman. Now, we all know kryptonite's a problem with Superman, but let's just say that kale is your kryptonite, right? So now there's kale powder in this, and people keep putting kale in that, and there's kale in your supplements. It's kind of everywhere. So, I just always kind of feel this way, right? I tried not eating something one day, it just didn't work. But if you were to go on a fast or only eat meat or heck, only eat butter or only eat one thing for a week, suddenly your superpowers would emerge. And what's happening with most of us is we're exposed to so many toxins and so many foods that are actually not compatible with us. You're never at your best. And when your mitochondria work, meditation lets you go deeper. And I know this from taking regular people and teaching them altered states. And I know this from powerful, energetic gurus who've come in, and I've worked with them on increasing mitochondrial function. And they're like, my powers got stronger. I'll never forget one guy, very, very honored sage in his country. He's in his 80s. And I helped him out with supplements, got his mitochondria working. And he had tears in his eyes. He's like, you turned my powers back on. I'm getting old. It was hard and now it's easy. And so your meditation powers are dependent on your mitochondria working, which is dependent on not eating toxins. So that'd be number one. Number two, most people are terrible at sleeping. I certainly was as a young man. If someone had just told me, that would have been much easier. Like, sleep matters, but it wouldn't have helped me because I couldn't go to sleep before 2 a.m. until I was about 40, maybe 45. And the reason is that light controls when you'll go to sleep, and some of us are more sensitive than others. And if I don't want jet lag or I want to reset my clock, I go to bed at 10 o'clock for the first time in my entire life. I can do this and actually want to do it. It's because I learned how to get dimmer switches in my house, and I put on these amazing True Dark glasses. Yes, I keep talking about things I make. These are the clinical grade glasses. And yes, I kind of look like Cyclops right now. If I wear these for 15 minutes, according to a study in a medical journal now, my brain will drop out of beta and it'll enter into a meditative state, which is pretty incredible. So it's like noise canceling headphones for the eyes. But this right now is telling my body that the world is pitch black. Even though I can see, it's sticking out every color that affects my timing system. So who would ever thought that controlling light so you can get a good night's sleep at normal times, you wake up and see the sunrise, and learning how to not eat toxins and eat things that actually nourish you was the foundation to good meditation and a good life and being present in your body and in your world? I believe those are foundational. And a lot of my body of work is those. And it shifted now where I'm willing to talk about the last 20 years of spiritual stuff and meditation stuff and yoga and breathwork and shamanic training and all that. And that's what Heavily Medited's about. It's like, you can do it. It doesn't have to take a lifetime because we don't have a lifetime to do it.
Right. Unless you keep extending your life. But again, you want to use your time to the best possible. And I love the fact that you nailed those two things, which are super simple, yet the whole world eats kryptonite all day long. It took me years of iterations to finally come to the place where I now only consume raw top round beef. I do not cook it because that nukes the mitochondrial energy. I eat raw butter and raw eggs with every meal every 12 hours. And that allowed my body to come online like I'd never even dreamed possible and turn my food consumption into a chore. Even though I do enjoy it a lot, it's not for pleasure. And the sleep improved dramatically in the quality of sleep just from doing that, because I took that load of all that toxic load of the glucose and the carbs that were turning to carbon out of my system. So that leads me to the next question, which is, you've got a danger coffee revolution going on, and I really want the definitive download of how that is a super innovation, superfood, and the responsible way to use it and the best application of it.
I'm with you that many, many plants have meaningful amounts of toxins. And the first chapter of the Bulletproof Diet in 12 years ago now, it was lectins, oxalates, phytic acid, omega-6 oils, mycotoxins. And these are major problems in plants. And so you minimize those. But some plants are useful medicinally, and they always have been. Coffee is one of those. In study after study after study, coffee is associated with increases in longevity. Your odds of dying from everything go down meaningfully up to 5 cups a day. It is a stronger effect than some longevity drugs. It's a much stronger effect than most nutritional interventions. It is a big thing. It also feels good and tastes good. Problem is, a lot of coffee does have mold toxins in it, which are direct mitochondrial toxins. I have studies that back this up. There's actually 37 studies backing up what I'm saying. And no, roasting coffee doesn't destroy mycotoxins, and neither does brewing it, sadly. So I quit coffee for 5 years, came back from a spiritual pilgrimage to Mount Kailash in remote Western Tibet, had a cup of coffee, felt great. Yay, I'm healed. Had another cup the next day and felt like garbage. It wasn't me. It was the coffee. And I went on this journey. My first big coffee company was called Bulletproof. Most people have heard of it by now. I am no longer at all associated with the company. And you can look at their products and see if they say that they are mold-free or not on them. Just trust the labeling. If you look at Danger Coffee, it says mold-free, and I test every batch. It also contains a therapeutic dose of broad-spectrum trace minerals and electrolytes, a large dose. These can enter the cells. They can allow toxins to leave the cells. They can bind to toxins in the gut. And they increase electrolyte activity in studies, the type of minerals I'm talking about. So you drink Danger Coffee and you feel amazing. It actually lands differently than normal coffee, and it is very high-grade coffee. So that's what I do. I travel with it, and I do 2 to 4 cups of that a day, and it makes life amazing. And I'm actually with you. I was a raw vegan for a while. It messed up my health greatly. When I stopped doing that, I became a raw omnivore, ate a lot of raw meat. I don't do raw meat typically now, other than sushi on occasion, mostly because of convenience and where I live. I've also built a regenerative farm, raised my own animals, ate all of my own food, did all that for 10 years. Where I am now, I eat a heck of a lot of red meat, fatty red meat. I'm kind of the king of grass-fed butter. And I don't eat a ton of veggies, but I eat medicinal veggies. And I'm not afraid of some carbs. I eat white rice if I want carbs. It seems to work fine.
Right. Yeah. It's an iterative process. You find out what your body resonates best with, and you've got that dialed in.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing I've noticed is that people are a little resistant to doing whatever it takes to actually have a body functioning at the highest level, which comes back to the whole myths that are conjured up around the biohacking space that's been changed a lot since you started it. And a lot of infiltration has happened. Are there things that you could suggest that people should be aware of and watch out for in that space today?
It's hard for me to say it's infiltration or things like that. Biohacking is the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so you have full control of your biology. And if your goal, in fact, everyone who does it eventually is going to have the same goals. It's not why you start, but you're going to end up saying, I want to live a very long time and I want to be happy. And whether you came in because you wanted muscles or you want to lose weight or to fix brain fog or whatever, those are all valid. I've got a chain of franchises now called Upgrade Labs, and people come in there and we ask them my survey. Most people, I want longevity, I want my brain to work, and I want my energy. Those are big things. So there are going to be people who disagree. There are vegans who say they're biohackers. Great, show me the data. And the thing about biohacking that's most important, I don't care if it's supposed to work. I don't care if it works for an average person. I don't care if it works for a million people. If you do it and you measure before and after, did you get results? If not, it does not work for you, and that's all that matters. And a big problem in the world is you can say something like, put butter in your coffee and blend it up, and it'll do something, and you'll feel it, and there's all these changes, and you won't be hungry. And an angry, high-fat physician can say, that can't work, therefore it doesn't. That is anti-science. The reality is, did it work or did it not? And I believe my bet, all of my companies, Danger Coffee, all the things I do, we're smart enough to spend a little bit more on things that work, things that are worth it. And so the biggest myth is that because it works for everyone, it's going to work for you. And this means if you have a fear of death and that dying is abhorrent to you, when you fight against something, you just make it stronger, right? So I'm all about living as long as I choose. I want to die at a time and by a method of my choice. And I have no issue when that happens. I just find that's more peaceful and that's the way I want to be.
Right. And that's very grounded, very common sense, which is exactly what is required right now with all the noise and confusion around being afraid of something or, being attached to something physical, rather than being able to measure and see the data. And people should convince themselves rather than have us convince them or sell themselves in something that they have analyzed and determined and made a series of good decisions. So
the other thing that's really important, Ian, is people are going to choose their level of suffering until they get the message, and it's not your job to stop them, right? So be the proof, be the evidence, show up the way you do, look the way you do, act the way you do. If they ask, share it. If they don't ask, don't. And if you tell them and they get triggered, it means they need to do the reset process and heavily meditate it. It means they need to learn breath work. They need to learn how to not be triggered by people who disagree with them, instead be curious. And it doesn't mean they have to listen. But if someone says, look, I'm going to continue to eat these plants that are giving me calcification throughout my body and kidney stones and joint pain and all these problems that I blame on something else, keep doing that. And maybe you'll get it or maybe you won't. But you're allowed with, my full support. Right? It's a free country, and I'm not going to get angry if you choose to do something that I disagree with. I'm going to wish you well. And man, it's a lot more peaceful to live that way.
And one last closing note. I set a goal to have perfect health a long time ago. And people tell me, well, you can't have perfect health. And I say, well, I agree with you for yourself. You say that's actually true for you, but I found out that's the opposite. And it's not an argument. It's just what you're setting as a goal. Everything shows up. So I appreciate your work, and you've supported so many people to be able to get awake and actually take responsibility for their health. So I appreciate your time today, Dave, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again. Can't believe it's been 13 years since we met. And keep on talking about what works for you and leading people. And, everyone's saying, you got to do what works for you. And there are people who will tell you this is a lot more likely than that. Why don't you try it and see if it works? If it doesn't, change direction. So thanks, man.
Thank you.